I hope that with some of my work that maybe evocative is a word I use. Um, my work is about, I believe, transformation. It's about one thing transforming into something else. In other words, I'm using what people refer to as found material, as things you might have thrown away, but I'm giving them a new life. So, hi, my name is Geoffrey Gorman. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I make found object sculptures out of a variety of material. You'll probably get a good idea of what I use from the video today, but I work with mountain bike tires, I work with old sticks, I work with found objects, kind of the things. A lot of people now are giving me things. I get things at dumps. When I go in the woods, I pick up a lot of rusty things. For some reason, I love rust, so if anything rusts, most likely I'm going to be interested in it. People say to me often, they're like, what kind of a mind does it take to come up with these creatures? And it's funny because some people really get my work. They get that it's this whole other world. Other people are really scared of my work. They believe that it's kind of like bones and the skeletons and something like that. I don't think that at all. Again, I think it's a real sense of excitement, of passion, of the wildness of the world. Now, my mind, I guess my mind has been very influenced by probably tribal art, by African art, by I spend a lot of time in Southeast Alaska, and there's a wonderful little museum there that has a great collection of Inuit work, of what we used to call Eskimos. And their work was so gorgeous, and it was so utilitarian, and it was, but they were able to add a little bit of detail. They were able to honor the creatures that they were either hunting or raising or things like that. That's really influenced my work. Now, my mind, I don't know what to say about that. I've been many things. I was a furniture maker. I was a gallery dealer. I've been a curator. I was curating a show for a college in Santa Fe, and they asked me to do a piece, and this was about 6 years ago. So literally, I threw together this sculpture from some rags and some rusted wire and some metal in my backyard, and I ended up making this piece. It was Huck Finn floating down a river out of just sticks and wire. And this friend of mine came over and he goes, "That's really cool. You should keep using these materials." So I hadn't really given it much thought ahead of time. I just figured you can make something from just about anything. So 6 years ago I stumbled on that. The first work I made was figurative work based on reading, The Adventures of Huck Finn were really what got me going. You can see up there's an early figurative piece that I did. That's based on time that I spent in Southeast Alaska. That's somebody dip netting for salmon, and its head is made out of the red cedar bark up there. So my early figures were very much both human and animal combined. For the last couple of years, though, I've been pretty much concentrating on animals, and as I travel and I hear stories, and from my imagination and also from my upbringing, I create these animals that interest me. I'm really interested in artifacts that have been made and that have aged and that we're studying now, and sometimes we don't even know what they are. I realize with my work that a lot of my work is about memory, and it's actually about my memory of growing up on an old abandoned horse farm. And the farm, it was huge and it was dilapidated, and every weekend with my brothers and neighbors, we'd go out and we'd build forts and we'd build boats and we'd build dams, and we'd be always building things. And I realize now that a lot of these creatures are basically based on my experience of growing up very close to nature and in a very much of a kind of build-it environment. So I think of the way my work is put together as maybe a 14-year-old kid might be using exactly the same techniques that I'm using. That's why I really don't allow 14-year-olds in here, because their ideas are so much better than mine. I have an amazing imagination, and all of my pieces have very elaborate stories in my mind. Sometimes I don't even tell people what the stories are about these creatures. But as I build them, I also build this narrative around them. My favorite book is The Adventures of Huck Finn. It's funny, it's the book that got me doing this sculpture. When I was curating this show, and it also, when I read the book, I read it about once a year now, it's amazing how I feel a lot of affinity to Huck Finn, and I think that I was lucky enough to have somewhat of an upbringing like that, where we would literally take off for days and go into the woods, and nobody really cared where we were. What you're seeing is you're seeing a bunch of sticks, and you're seeing a bunch of tin and old rags and screws, but suddenly it's become a bird, or it's become a dog, or it's become a wolf, or it's become something else. So a lot of this is about the transformation of something into something else. It's also about past cultures. It's about our sense of throwing things away and not really honoring what we have in front of us and allowing it just to be what it is, and for it to age gracefully. There's a genus and a species of every living thing, so there's millions of genus and species names. I take the species names, the Latin names, and I put them on my pieces, believing that I'm not telling you specifically what it is. I'm giving you some hints. It's evocative, but it's not saying, you know, this is a monkey or this is a great blue heron or whatever. I'm leaving that to the viewer. So that's how I've come up with my names for my pieces. What I think of with my work is I think of that I'm journaling every day. You know, a writer might write in a journal every day about their experiences, what they're feeling. What I'm doing is I'm creating something physically. In other words, I'm creating a sculpture out of what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling and what I'm hearing. And so in terms of what the future might bring for me, one thing I have ideas for groups of animals, for more pack animals. I'd love to do some packs of dogs, maybe some deer, some antelope. I see my work becoming more multiples. Living in New Mexico for so long, being in the desert, being in the woods, you'll come across old, you know, Model Ts, and they'll be gorgeously patinaed from the wind and the rain and this gorgeous rust, and they become these monuments, I believe, to something that happened in the past, but they're actually more beautiful than they've ever been. And, you know, I don't see people really acknowledging that being in the desert so dry, it does fossilize things. I mean, things are really preserved. So I'm hoping that maybe some of these pieces do feel like they're from a past culture. They've been kind of preserved. They are deteriorating, but at the same time, they do have their own life. And in fact, they have a real secret life that we don't even know about.